Staying in West Africa, Germany has signed an agreement to transfer ownership to Nigeria of Benin Bronzes, amongst Africa's most culturally significant artifacts, which were looted in the 19th century. British soldiers took hundreds of bronzes, intricate sculptures and plaques dating back to the 13th century onwards, when they invaded the Kingdom of Benin, located in what is now southwestern Nigeria, in 1897. The artifacts ended up in museums around Europe, the United States, and elsewhere. African countries have for years fought to recover them. Germany returned the first of the sculptures to Nigeria in July. Now, joining me to make sense of all of this and discuss its significance is Ekaite Alfred. She's a history teacher and founder of the Pan-African Academy. She joins me live from London in the United Kingdom. Good evening to you, Ekaite, and thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
Now, Ekaite, how significant of a step is the return of this stolen Benin Bronzes?
I think it's huge, because we've had a few institutions, different nations that have pledged to give these back and have started giving these back. But the more that actually do this, then momentum increases. So I think then that increases kind of public pressure to return them, because it's not necessarily going to come out of moral conviction. I think it's the public pressure that causes this to happen. So the more we see following this trend, then it's more likely then that's going to trickle onto others as well. So it's a huge step towards that.
A huge step indeed. Now, it's been estimated that 95% of cultural objects from Africa are housed outside the African continent. Now, what does this mean for society to lose so much of its cultural legacy, and what does it mean for the people?
I mean, it's devastating. If you remove an aspect of somebody's culture, that's a huge part of their identity. There's a reason during the transatlantic slave trade why people's names were stripped, people's religions were stripped, because your culture is empowering. So you disempower people by removing elements of their culture. So I think for the people of the region, so Benin City, Edo, and Nigeria as a whole, this goes some way in offering some form of restitution for what happened, because we know these artifacts were looted, but then I think sometimes we don't understand what was behind that. The fact that there was a massacre, that many people were slaughtered. There's such a history and a violent history behind how these were taken. So I think as these are returned, it goes some way, not to make up for that, but as I said, some way to offer some form of restitution for that.
Now, earlier this month, London's Horniman Museum said it would return 72 artifacts, including 12 brass plaques, to the Nigerian government, following a similar move by Cambridge University College and a Paris museum last year. Do you believe that this could be the beginning of a process that could see the return of many more artifacts, as a lot of this former colonizers come in terms with their ugly colonial past?
Absolutely. As I said, I think that there will be that knock-on effect. The more that we see bowing to this public pressure to return these artifacts, the more that it's going to place pressure onto others. I know the big one that most people look to is the British Museum, because they hold something like 900 of these bronzes. And for a long time, they've kind of hidden behind the excuse of legislation. So the British Museum Act of 1963 is what tends to be spoken of, which prohibits the return of these artifacts. But I think the time that they can hide behind that is over now, because if we look back in history, there have been many atrocities that have been enshrined in law. Many things that were legal that we look back on and we know shouldn't have been: slavery, apartheid, all kinds of things. So I think that the British Museum, as I said, is the main one people are looking to. There's a lot of pressure on them, and there's only so much longer that they'll be able to kind of shield themselves with this legislation.
Exactly. Now, there's a lot of debate that comes when it comes to that comes up when we're discussing issues of reparation or returning stolen artifacts. A lot of people say, these artifacts have been successfully preserved in Europe and all these Western countries for years, and that does Africa have the wherewithal or the facilities to preserve these artifacts for generations to come? The French even had a deal with the Republic of Benin last year that the term used was to loan the artifacts. You loan something you stole in the first place to the Republic of Benin because they feel they have better ways of preserving them. What do you make of all of this?
I think it's very cheeky, to put it politely, to have items that are stolen and then question whether they can be looked after by the original owners. It reminds me of when Julius Nyerere was asked about Africa and whether they can handle independence. And
Yeah.
his kind of very legendary response was that you can't come into my house and take my jacket and then ask me if I'm ready to have my jacket back. It's mine. So I just think this is something that, okay, whether Africa can look after these or not, that's something that needs to be dealt with in-house, as opposed to others questioning whether, as a continent, we're responsible enough to take care of things that we commissioned and made and took care of for a long time.
The agency lies with the African governments and the people to decide what they want to do with what they took in the first place. On that note, I'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Kaite Alfred. Thanks for taking time to talk to us about this and sharing your insights on the subject.
Thank you very much.